Chapter 80, Breaking Through a Realm. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. King Yu saw the carriage-breaking arrow falling from the sky and his face revealed a trace of displeasure. He coldly huffed and said, "Mind your own business." He wanted to personally kill Zhang Yuochen, not have him be killed by Prince Huo Crossing. Since Prince Huoxing has intervened, Zhang Yuochen was definitely going to die. King Yu pushed off the ground with his toes, becoming a green shadow. He flew off, retreating far away. Naturally, Zhang Yuochen felt the carriage-breaking arrow streaking through the air. All the hair on his body stood on end like a hedgehog, a chill went down his spine, and his scalp tingled. It felt like the sky was crashing down. Ice Fire Kilin. Zhang Yuochen felt genuine chi rush through 36 meridians, all flowing towards the Ice Fire Kilin armor he was wearing. Almost instantly, he triggered 10 lines of inscription within the Kilin armor. Ice Fire Kilin armor was a level 6 genuine martial arm. There were 38 lines of inscription in the armor. However, with Zhang Yuochen's current martial cultivation, he could only activate 10 at most. Swish. The armor on Zhang Yuochen's body emitted red and blue light, spreading both cold and heat energy. The roar of a Kilin emanated from within the armor and a 7-meter-tall illusory image of a Kilin appeared. It shielded Zhang Yuochen with its body. Boom! Crashing into the illusory Kilin, it was clear that the force of the carriage-breaking arrow weakened slightly as well as slowing down. By the time the arrow had made it to Zhang Yuochen's back, 90% of its power had been depleted, and only 10% was left. Even this 10% of power was terrifying. It managed to send Zhang Yuochen flying into a nearby tree, which was 1 meter in diameter. The impact caused him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Luckily the arrow was blocked by the armor. Otherwise, Zhang Yuochen would have been impaled. The carriage-breaking arrow is so powerful. It's at least 10 times stronger than the thunder arrow. Zhang Yuochen used his sword and spear to hold himself up and spat out another mouthful of blood. Prince Huoxing stood on the back of the green-shelled eagle holding the silver bone crescent bow. He softly exclaimed and said, "Ice Fire Kilin armor. I had no idea he was wearing such a treasure. This is amazing. King Yu, kill him, and take the Kilin armor from him." King Yu let out a cold laugh and walked towards Zhang Yuochen and said, "Even the arrow couldn't kill you. Looks like I'll still have to do it personally." Zhang Yuochen glanced slightly at Ziqian. She had already killed 5 of the warriors of the Square Commandery. If he could delay just a little longer, she would be able to kill all 7. "I'm leaving first, see you never." Zhang Yuochen turned and ran like an agile monkey. In a flash, he disappeared into the forest. Escaping into the forest not only drew out time, it also provided a little cover against Prince Huo Crossing. This prevented him firing another carriage-breaking arrow. Escape? In your dreams. King Yu chased after Zhang Yuochen, rushing into the forest at a speed of 44 meters per second. As Zhang Yuochen could only move at 34 meters per second, he had no speed advantage. In a few seconds, King Yu had caught up and the two resumed their duel. King Yu removed a foot-long hooked knife from a bag at his waist, reminiscent of a scythe. He moved his fingers and the scythe rotated in the air, creating tens of knife shadows with a swish sound. A hit. Zhang Yuochen's clothes were sliced open at the chest. Luckily, it did not pierce through the Ice Fire Kilin armor. Zhang Yuochen was fortunate it had blocked the scythes, otherwise his chest would definitely be bleeding from the cut. Hey, your highness, King go die." King Yu was as fast as a ghost and there was a cruel smile in his eyes. With a wave of his arm, the cold, curved blade slashed towards Zhang Yuochen's neck. At this critical moment, all of the genuine chi within Zhang Yuochen's body moved towards the vessel of Spirit Meridian, communicating with the martial soul. The space in front of Zhang Yuochen shimmered slightly. It seemed as if King Yu's curved knife was about to slice open Zhang Yuochen's throat. But, because of the small spatial distortion, the trajectory of the knife changed slightly. It had sliced in front of Zhang Yuochen but did not touch his body. This was one of the powers of the space domain, called the space warp. How is that possible? King Yu hesitated briefly, feeling as if his eyes had played a trick on him and somehow Zhang Yuochen managed to survive. At that brief moment King Yu hesitated, Zhang Yuochen struck with his sword and pierced through his left arm. PFFT. King Yu let out a muffled cry. His teeth clenched as he kicked at Zhang Yuochen's chest and sent him flying back. At the same time, King Yu was retreating rapidly. His left arm was in great pain and blood poured down it. In just a moment, half his body was numb. Unbelievable. You actually pierced through the meridian of my left hand. King Yu's eyes were filled with rage. He had not expected to be harmed at the hands of a warrior at the initial stage of the Black Realm. Even though he had remarkable self-healing powers, he was unable to reconnect the meridians in his left hand in so short a time. At this moment, Ziqian walked out from the forest. Holding a bloody sword, she stood behind King Yu. She had already killed the other 7 warriors. The fresh blood drenched her clothes, causing it to stick to her body. It outlined her curves, hugging her slight waist, and outlining her long legs. Her black hair was also dripping with crimson blood. Clearly she was a figure of great beauty, but right now she seemed more like a messenger of death, her whole body radiating murderous feeling. King Yu laughed coldly and said, "Even if I only have one hand, it will still be easy to kill both of you." From the air came Prince Huoxing's voice. "King Yu, I will give you a hand." Prince Huoxing drew out a flute. Infusing his genuine qi into the flute, he began to play a melodious tune. Following the sound of the flute, a rustling came from the forest. A fist-sized poisonous bee flew out, straight towards Zhang Yuochen and Ziqian. A medium-class level 1 savage beast, a poisonous bee. Once poisoned by the poisonous bee, a warrior would have hallucinations. If poisoned by 3 of them, a warrior would be in life-threatening danger. Even a warrior in the dawn state would die within a quarter of an hour, if stung by 5 poisonous bees. Although the poisonous bee was only a medium-class level 1 savage beasts, Prince Huoxing's flute had summoned over 100 of them. Never mind a dawn state warrior, even a warrior in the final state would have to run for their lives. "Run!" Zhang Yuochen yelled at Ziqian. After saying these words, Zhang Yuochen ran ahead to avoid being surrounded by the poisonous bees. "Can you escape?" King Yu chased after Zhang Yuochen and Ziqian. He had practiced Green Devil Hand and naturally had poison in his physique, so he was not afraid of the poisonous bees. Zhang Yuochen glanced at the rapidly approaching King Yu and also glanced at Prince Huoxing on the back of the green-shelled eagle and thought, Prince Huoxing is a tamer. Although he is only an advanced state warrior, he is more dangerous than King Yu. We must first get rid of him, otherwise, we are sure to die today. But he can ride on a green-shelled eagle, hovering in midair. How can we attack him? Just at this moment, a lazy voice spoke from within Zhang Yuochen's forehead. "Young man, if you can promise me one condition, I may be able to lend you a hand." It was Blackie's voice. Blackie was sealed within the yin-yang wooden graph, and the graph was suspended in the chi lake within Zhang Yuochen's glabella. Zhang Yuochen asked, "What conditions?" "From now on, you will not seal me within the graph," Blackie said. Zhang Yuochen replied, "As long as you behave better, I can agree to this condition." "Fine, we have a deal," Blackie said happily. Zhang Yuochen's sacred mark flared. An art roll flew out from his glabella and landed in his hand. He waved his arm, and a giant black cat flew out from within the art scroll. It landed beside Zhang Yuochen like a massive black ball of yarn on the ground, dissolving the seal. Blackie was ecstatic and said, "Young man, I will aid you and get rid of the person flying in the air." Zhang Yuochen asked, "You can attack him?" Blackie rolled his eyes at Zhang Yuochen and said, "My title is the King of Slaughter. If I can't take on the sky and the earth, how can I be the King of Slaughter?" Blackie began to glow darkly, making sounds like small firecrackers. His body grew larger and now was about the size of a lion. A pair of black wings also grew on his back. The black wings flapped, and Blackie rose into the air. He charged towards the flying Prince Huo crossing. He can transform. Zhang Yuochen was slightly shocked. It was his first time seeing a cat who could fly. Behind him, King Yu was also shocked. Staring at Zhang Ruojun, he thought, is he also a tamer? At this moment, the poisonous bees caught up. Slap. Zhang Yuochen swiped with his sword, and sliced a poisonous bee in half. More bees flew up. Sacred Bell Sword. Zhang Yuochen used a spiritual stage sword technique, creating a 3-meter tall illusion of a clock. It shielded his body in the middle. The big clock rotated, sending out tens of lines of sword breaths. Another dozen poisonous bees were struck by the sword breath and fell to the ground. Green Devil Hand. King Yu caught up and leapt. Crossing over 10 meters of distance, he struck towards Zhang Yuochen's chest. Zhang Yuochen struck with his spear in one hand while the other held his sword. He used both at the same time to block King Yu. Boom! King Yu was too strong. He shocked the spear from Zhang Yuochen's hand. Zhang Yuochen backed up a dozen steps to dissipate King Yu's hit. He spat out another mouthful of blood. Already having taken some serious damage, Zhang Yuochen could no longer defend a full-strength attack from King Yu. No choice. The difference between our cultivations is too large. If I could break through to the mid-stage of the Black Realm, it would be nowhere near this difficult. Zhang Yuochen wiped the blood from his mouth. He did not feel discouraged, rather his feelings of bloodlust strengthened. Boiling animal spirits. The genuine qi in Zhang Yuochen's body began to move. All the blood in his body began to boil. Boiling animal spirits was the mark of an initial stage warrior of the Black Realm. King Yu laughed coldly and said, "What about boiling animal spirits? Warriors of the initial stage are weak. They are no competition for warriors of the dawn state you broke through." King Yu's expression changed. He watched Zhang Yuochen's paws secrete threads of blood fog, becoming a blood rainbow and enveloping the body. Power of rainbow-like animal spirits was the mark of a mid-stage warrior of the Black Realm.